All right. So go ahead and start recording.
It's recording. It's on.
All right. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Gary.
Yes. So welcome, commissioners. This is Tuesday, March 24th, 2020. This is your first remote meeting of work sessions and policy sessions and issues. Let's start with a roll call. Chair Bernard.
Here.
Commissioner Fischer.
Here.
Commissioner Schrader.
Here.
Commissioner Savas.
Here.
Commissioner Humberston.
Here.
We're all here and present. We are doing this via the Zoom meeting application so we can all see each other. This is being recorded. Staff is present who will be presenting. We have an attendees list of other staff who are listening, but they won't be able to comment and you won't see their faces. We have the Clackamas TV is Public and Government Affairs, who is supporting us with recording and any other technical glitches. Kevin Galusha is from Technology Services. He is also assisting us with technological issues. If you wish to speak, please use the raise hand function on the participant list, or just physically raise your hand like this, and Kevin will help me track the order of which you raised your hand. With that, we'll get started, and we'll start with Nancy Bush, Director of Disaster Management and Incident Commander of our Emergency Operations Center. She will give a quick coronavirus update, and then we have several business items to discuss with you about coronavirus. So Nancy, please start.
All right, good morning, everyone. So just going through the numbers real quickly. For the state, we have 191 positive. There's 14 positive here in Clackamas. Negative tests are 3,649. For the Clackamas, it's 431 negative tests. We have 56 hospitalized in the state at this time, and we have a total number of 5 deaths in the state at this time as well. So just a couple of updates. I wanted to let everyone know that I had a conference call this morning, or a Zoom call with all of the cities. They have several questions right now, so we're trying to go through all of those. We're setting up a time with them, or I am, on Tuesdays and Thursday mornings at 7:30. We'll be having that call so I can answer their questions and give them as much information as I possibly can. We have an SBA loan application that is now out, which is the Small Business Association loan. We have a lot of questions coming in from our businesses. It's like, well, can I apply? How do I apply? And the SBA system has been very, very slow. So we have a unit that's working with them on that. The federal government is aware that their system is slowing down, but they have so many applications coming in that it's been difficult to get some things in there. We are working very closely as well with the region on hotel vouchers. As people who may not have a home or can't go back to their home, and if they've been told they're sick or they need to be quarantined for 14 days, in the region we have hotel vouchers set up. We have a couple hotels here for sure in the county that are working with us to take those vouchers. Our social services group is also working with that particular population to make sure they're also getting fed. The vouchers do not include feeding, so we're making sure that that's getting done as well. We have, we're working with a lot of our nonprofits, especially around those that are doing some kind of sheltering or housing, and actually reaching out to them to see what kinds of needs that they have and how we can help them as well. We still don't have a lot of personal protective equipment in, the PPE. I had a long conversation this morning with some law enforcement because of course they are on the front lines and they're wanting to make sure that they're protected. So we're trying to make sure that they get what they need. But again, everything is very, very tight around some of the PPE. So we're being very methodical in how that is all being sent out. And, I do want to go back too for businesses. If they have any questions, they can send an email to 4BIZ @clackamas.us. or they can call 503-742-4 BIZ. And that is my quick update.
All right, Commissioner Humberston, let me unmute you. Yeah, Ken, you're on mute.
Nancy?
Yes.
Okay. Would you send an email to me and to the other commissioners with the information that you just gave us?
Yes.
Some of that information I'd like to get out, especially the statistical information at the beginning, and then, of course, the contact information for SBA and some of the other things that you alluded to.
Absolutely. And I do need to say too, for the numbers I just sent out, that was at 8 o'clock yesterday. OHA hasn't updated yet. So when they update today, I'll send out the newest.
Right.
Okay.
Commissioner Fischer?
Thank you. Nancy, I've been hearing from folks in the medical community very concerned about when the surge hits and not having capacity. And in our executive session today, we went over the executive order that we're looking at expanding to include being able to use private property.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any plans right now to get ready for a couple weeks when we're going to need more space and capacity for people either leaving the hospital and they can't go to residential care facilities because they're not taking new people, or people that need to be sheltered, and we just will have more capacity, more need than we have capacity?
Yes. So we had some communication with the state a couple days ago that they were working with the local agencies to find what we're calling alternative sites. And so yesterday we had another call with them. And so basically they're leaving all of that kind of up to us here at the local level. So what we are doing now is we're working in the region on those alternative sites. We have a couple of places that I don't want to mention here, but we do have some places that we're looking into to see if we can make them alternative sites. But that is all that is in the works, and we're working on that, and we are working on that as a region.
Thank you.
Commissioner Savas? You're on mute. Unmute yourself, Commissioner. There you go.
So I did it myself. I've been talking to some family in California that's in the medical industry, and what they're doing, I guess their strategy there has been it's about location. So they're trying to do as much on-site. Basically on-site, what I mean by that is like at a hospital or in a parking lot, is setting up those areas. That way they are close to the facility that should things get dire, that they can move them right in, or switching places where there's non-urgent needs and those people are moved out to the outside facilities, but keeping that location very, very close and critical to the hospital facilities themselves. So I'm not sure if that's been discussed here locally, but I'm sure that in the hospital industry that they probably already have. It's, National Guard setting up outside tents and so forth. But again, location.
Right. So yes, the hospital systems, the three major ones, of course, we have in the area are having those conversations. And we do have some surge. And when I say we, the state has some surge capacity as well with medical tents to be able to do some triaging. And that is part of the conversations as well. And I think, as all of you probably are aware, when we start going through this, there's very limited number of healthcare workers. And so even though we may have some of the equipment or the tents, we may not have the workers that we need to actually do part of that triage. So those are things we're working on.
Commissioner Schrader?
Yeah, Nancy, I brought this up a little earlier when you weren't online, but I just wanted to update you with what I'm finding out from the Oregon China Council. They did get a call from the Oregon Emergency Coordination Center, and they are now part of the state efforts to secure donation and supplies of PPE. So they're actually working with suppliers from China. They're working with getting donations here locally in order to, again, as Commissioner Fischer mentioned, increase that hospital capacity to and protect our first responders with getting the appropriate equipment in. So he asked me, are we supplying our numbers to the state, or do we have a different number? And my assumption is, I did give him your number. I think Jin Lon would like to talk to you. However, my understanding is that more than likely this donation stream has to go through the state and then it's distributed statewide.
So I do need to have the conversation because I'm not sure, because there's some things that we're getting donated locally that we're able to accept. Okay. If there's something that is coming in that large that might be more appropriate for the state to handle, but without talking to him, I'm not sure. But we are having some donations at the local level.
Okay, he did say that they would be willing to give locally to the county.
Okay, I would love to.
I did set up, but I don't know what the process is to set up a conversation with him. I gave him your number. He said he would love a conference call. So I'm asking advice from my administrator and other folks. Is that something we want to pursue?
Yes.
That would just be a phone call.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
See if you and the EOC team could please take the lead on that.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
So Martha, Commissioner, if you could, you gave him my number, but I don't have any contact information on
I will get the contact information to you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner
Right.
Savas? Do you have anything else?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries. Back to you,
All
Gary.
right. There are two pieces of business, commissioners, for you to discuss and adopt. First is an updated emergency declaration. Stephen, would you mind please updating what that is, please?
Sure. Yes, we've discussed an addendum to the existing emergency declaration resolution, and I have prepared and circulated that addendum. And what it does, it adds additional emergency measures. One of those emergency measures is formalizing the temporary moratorium on residential and commercial evictions for non-payment of rent based on a tenant's inability to pay due to loss of income attributed to COVID-19. Number two is to commandeer or utilize private property as deemed necessary to respond to the emergency. 3, no place of lodging can discriminate against any customer seeking shelter who is in possession of a valid voucher whose payment is subsidized either by the county or a county contractor. And 4, price gouging prohibited. The value of goods and services sold within Clackamas County may not exceed the prices ordinarily charged for comparable goods and services in the same market area at or immediately before the time of the declared emergency, which in this case would have been March 2nd of 2020, and that individuals or entities that violate any provision of any emergency measure is subject to a $500 fine for each offense. These additional measures shall remain in effect for the duration of the declaration of emergency. So that is an addendum to the existing resolution we have in place. It is ready for the chair's signature if the board approves of it. I'm here to answer any questions.
All right, Commissioner Humberston?
Yeah, and, one question is assuming we pass that, can we promulgate that publicly?
Yes.
And I'm prepared to make a motion when the chair requests it.
Any other questions? So make a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the emergency ordinance as presented by County Council.
Second.
Moved and second to approve the emergency declaration provided by County Council. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say, oh wait, please take the roll.
Yeah. Commissioner Schrader?
You're on mute, Martha.
You could thumbs up it if you want.
Aye.
Commissioner Humberston?
Aye.
Commissioner Fischer?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Chair Bernard.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Great.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you,
I'll bring up the document for the chair's signature after this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then
And
one
I-
more piece of, I'm sorry, one more
Oh, I'm
piece of
sorry.
business.
I'm sorry, Gary. I want to make sure I get a copy of that signed because I have to send it up to the state when it's done, Stephen.
We'll get it taken care of for you, Nancy.
He
All
nodded
right,
yes.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next piece of business, and I'll ask Stephen for this as well. The city of Wilsonville has made a request for you commissioners, I believe, regarding driving check waivers. Stephen, could you please update the board?
That's correct. I got an email from Barbara Jacobson, Wilsonville City Attorney, yesterday stating that they're in a bit of a crisis regarding meal service to the elderly, and they have some drivers who are smart bus drivers who have gone through a city background check, but apparently the county was saying they need a county background check and it will take up to 6 weeks. And so
Yeah.
the city's requesting a waiver of that, and they said they've already given criminal background checks for these drivers, but it is the board's call. I have no objection. Nancy Bush had no objection. Gary Schmidt had no objection. So with that, we're here to answer any questions. I know that they've emailed me twice this morning asking what the county's response was to this.
I got no problem with it if everyone else is good. Maybe we should just, you need a motion?
Yes, please.
Commissioner Humbertson.
Yes, I'll move to approve.
Second,
It's been moved and second that we allow a little more leeway in Meals on Wheels. I assume it's Meals on Wheels, food delivery.
It's definitely food to the elderly. I'm not sure if it's through the Meals on Wheels process, but we are looking to waive the county's background check on drivers and rely on the city's background check.
What he said. So
okay.
Kevin, would you poll the commission?
Yes. Commissioner Humbertson.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner Fischer.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Chair Bernard.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. I'll let them know.
All right.
Great, thank you.
I have some updates for you as well, commissioners, on our county's response to COVID-19. First, commissioners, we forwarded you 2 letters that the Tri-County chairs, which is Multnomah, Washington, and Clackamas County, sent to the governor. The first was this Sunday, requesting that the governor declare a stronger statement about encouraging people to stay home, which she indeed did yesterday. The second letter is encouraging the governor to consider relaxing local budget law to allow counties and cities to submit their budgets by the end of July instead of the end of June. We've also, the Association of Oregon Counties is also taking up that cause. So we did forward both of those letters so that you have those for your records. As you know, commissioners, we've asked all staff to work remotely unless they absolutely are providing a critical service and can only do that service physically at a county building. So we're asking our employees to stay safe, to stay healthy. Most of them are working remotely from home. All of you mostly are working remotely from home. We are still doing business, but we're doing it in a different way. And we are asking the public to please temporarily not come to the county, but to do their business remotely. So I'm very grateful to our department leadership who is helping make that happen. We are just providing services in a different way now for the public. Continue to thank our staff working in our Emergency Operations Center. That is staffed every day of the week, and they are doing fantastic work. So thank you to Nancy for leading that and our other staff. Did want to discuss and have a conversation with the board about an outreach plan for you. Public and Government Affairs submitted a draft plan for you yesterday. It does include conducting listening sessions with the community, board members doing that, as well as having more virtual meetings beyond your Thursday business meeting. So staff is prepared to move forward on that, but would love your input or ideas about how you engage with the community. Commissioner Fischer had some ideas that she shared via email as well. But if you'd like to discuss that now, we're open to your inputs. From staff is open to your ideas of how we can continue to engage you commissioners with the community.
Right. Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, to Gary's first point he raised with regard to the letters from the chairs, I have no problem with it.
Wait a second. I accidentally stopped recording, so let me, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
So regard to Gary's first point about the county chair's letters, I have no problem with the content of the letters, but I just want to, I had an email conversation or inquiry to Administrator Schmidt in regards to at least please post those or send those to us. I know it was drafted on Saturday and it made the newspaper before I even saw a copy. So it would be, I just think a courtesy to all of us to have a copy of those, whether it's draft or not, but as soon as possible. Is that fair?
Absolutely. Staff will do that. I'm committing that staff here on a copy. We'll make sure we're sending it to all commissioners as soon as we see a draft and the final letter.
And then my other comment as far as the last item you mentioned, Gary, that is that the virtual meetings or ideas there, things are in such, they're so dynamic and things are in flux. I'm kind of wondering if we just let things maybe cool down a little bit. And I think it'd be important to make sure we have staff that can answer questions. So therefore, I think it'd be more appropriate if we did that we have, if not all the commissioners, but a majority of the commissioners and staff, so that we all say the same thing. I'm just concerned about getting mixed messages, one person saying one thing and another, but have that backed up with staff, because I think the questions will be along the lines of this crisis. That's all I have.
Want to add something? Can I bust in?
Yes.
So with this new thing, I can't find raise my hand yet. So I have the newest technology, so I'm not sure. Anyway, so one other issue related is that we're trying to do a tri-county consistent message. So I believe that our PIOs are communicating with one another to try and make sure that that message is consistent. And so I know our PIO has asked that we coordinate our communications as much as possible amongst ourselves. I'll tell you that, so the letters that have gone out, we usually talk on the phone every night, and we kind of negotiate that, and then either our staff or Washington County staff or Multnomah County staff writes up a draft, which we all see. And then last night, for example, the letter we sent, we agreed to in our conversation, and Caroline sent it. And then you guys got it right away. I saw you guys had it. So, but a consistency in message amongst the counties too is also important. So we just need to make sure that we go through our folks when appropriate. As far as questions, that's really a big challenge. And we're trying to figure out maybe some sort of mechanism to answer those questions to everybody's satisfaction. But it's also true that we are so damn busy that answering those questions take time, and we don't want to take too much time out of Nancy, Richard, or anybody else's time. So I've asked that you go through me as much as possible. It's very dynamic, and over time we'll work out some sort of policy or procedure that maybe we can figure out how to do that. I, of course, talk to Gary every morning, every day at about 11:30, right, Gary? And we try and coordinate that. Martha's on the line, and then we send out notes as soon as possible.
Okay. Commissioner Fischer and then Commissioner Humberston.
Yeah, I think the process of getting our issues and concerns to Jim, and then having Jim go through strategy with Gary, and then also with the tri-counties, is a really good system. I've noticed that the things that I've brought up have been addressed, not only in our strategy meetings at the county, but also in the tri-county meetings. And then I see them also in the emergency reports that we get. So that allows me to just step back and know that things are being handled really well. Of course, the things that I've been connecting with the community on are the education piece and the health and human services piece, because that's where most of my expertise lies. One thing that I was wondering might be a really good idea, because we all have different constituencies, that would be really useful if we all could share information with each other. So Ken, with the internet, natural resources, and the community planning organizations, I think it would be great if there was a way to systematically get folks actively connecting with some of these constituencies and then getting the information back to all of us. And similarly with Martha, with workforce and business connections, and Paul has a lot of connections with the transportation and with veterans and also with housing. And then Jim has been really the conduit of all the information, connection with the mayors, the EOC, the critical infrastructure, and just coordinate our collective strategy. If we could get some, I think naturally this is all happening because we're connecting with our constituencies, but if we could somehow systemize this so that we each share with each other the information that we're getting. And there's a lot of ways we could do that. We could do it with an email at the end of the day, or we could possibly do a quick Zoom meeting to just update each other on what we're hearing out there. But those are some ideas. And then the last thing before I stop talking is I've been doing a call with Rachel Prusak and city councilors in her district and school board members, and also the Clackamas ESD. I've suggested to both Rachel and to Rob Wagner that the legislature sort of systemize that. And I think it would be really useful if each of us had a certain geography of the county that we are connected to, so that we can streamline and communicate through the intergovernmental level.
Commissioner Humberston, then Commissioner Savas.
Getting back to the original question from public information officers and doing a Q&A on camera with commissioners, I think we need to be consistent in our messaging, and if there's 6 different ones of us participating in that, it's not going to be consistent. I think the messaging ought to come through the chair and through Gary Schmidt, so that we remain consistent in the information that goes out. And then once we hear it from them, we can each contact our respective constituencies that we've been in contact with, and we're giving out the information that Director Schmidt and Chair Bernard have given us. Otherwise, we end up making the mistake that I always have to be careful of, which is getting out ahead of my skis. So this is a situation where I think centralized messaging from our Chief Administrative Officer and the Chair is most apropos.
All right, Commissioner Savas next, please.
Yeah, maybe similar to what Commissioner Humberston just said, I don't think that we should make a lot more work for all of our staff already. I think that there is so much going on. Everyone's got so much responsibilities right now that doing an approach like that might just be more cumbersome than it would be beneficial. I would suggest maybe that if we have ideas or concerns, that we email them to the administrator and the chair, and then at the end of the day, maybe each day, if there's things that are going on, maybe just get a review have Gary send out what all those were, so we can all see them, and make a point not to reply. That way we don't have an illegal meeting, but basically just a list of everything that's come up and share that and just broadcast it at the end of the day. I mean, that's one idea versus everyone getting on the phone and taking up one another's time, including staff. It just seems like it'd be very overwhelming pretty quickly.
So my concern is that Gary is already overwhelmed. So I think we need to think through this a little bit, since this is really our first meeting on Zoom. Let's think about it and we'll get back to you real soon. I don't think Gary, I don't know about you, but my emails fill up as fast as I can delete them. And so it's really challenging, and I don't think we can put the burden on Gary. So we'll get back on this. Hopefully today, tomorrow, we'll have a solution.
Commissioner Schrader?
Yeah, I really like the plan that Public and Government Relations put together. And that seemed to me the framework where we would be working in terms of communication. Obviously, we all know all different types of folks throughout the county, but that seemed like a really solid methodology to be consistent to me. So just a comment. And we do have to trust PGA to really be moving ahead with this. So
So staff will take all your thoughts together, board, and we'll talk about it in our strategy team today and come back to you with a suggestion of how to coordinate and systematize what you are recommending.
All right.
Any other questions or comments about COVID-19 before we move on?
So yeah, Gary, I had one question on the last conversation. You had sent out an email that all questions go to the COPIO email address. Could you clarify what that means? I'm just curious, if we are connecting with people out in the community and we know the answer to things, are you not wanting us to respond to those?
No, so thank you. My suggestion is anytime there is an email that comes into the BCC mail, which goes to all of you, or if there is an individual email that goes to all 5 commissioners, or a phone call that comes into our main office line, if we could allow our PIO staff to coordinate a response. Obviously, if you individually get contacted, if you know the answer, answer it, or send it to staff and we can help you coordinate it. That was my suggestion. The group emails you're getting, that we let staff coordinate a response. Okay. So looking like we can move on then, great. Nancy, you're welcome to stay, but if you need to go, that's fine. Thank you very much, Nancy, for your update. We have several more issue items that are still related to COVID-19. The first is about fee waivers for late fees and other fees, so that we can be compassionate to our ratepayers and members of the public during this challenging time. We're going to start with Water Environment Services. They have a proposal for a late fee certification waiver. There was a memo that was in your packet. And staff, I apologize, I did not forward the updated memo, so if you can just brief the board verbally what was in your updated memo. So I'll let Greg Geist take the lead, please.
Morning, commissioners. So yeah, our proposal is to, well, first of all, I'll start with, you may or may not be aware that if WES has the ability at the end of the year, if there are unpaid account balances, to what we call certify those, which means it adds that to a property owner's property taxes. So what we're proposing is to suspend charging any kind of, accruing any kind of late fees for the foreseeable future until this is all sorted out, and to not certify those overdue account balances to property taxes at the end of the year. Also, part of our proposal was that we would commit to very permissive repayment plans with no interest and very generous terms.
I don't have a problem with that. Everyone else is doing it, and since you're going to somehow, I mean, these are people who just are currently not paying, not people who have not paid prior to this incident, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Right, Commissioner Humbertson?
Just one question. Do you need a motion to actually implement this and us acting as the WES governing body?
I don't believe we do, no.
Okay, thank you.
One thing I'll add is we're also looking at just ways to make things easier for our customers in our community. We work closely with the Department of Transportation and Development in the development review arena, And so we're going to be working alongside them to make sure that we can streamline our processes. And we're looking at things like, you know, if somebody has a project that's been in the pipeline, it's ready to proceed, and the only thing we don't have is payment, and we, for one reason or another, can't accept payment at this time, then we would go ahead and approve those types of projects. So we're just looking at kind of a day-to-day, how can we utilize our discretion to make sure these things keep moving. Fees are a tiny fraction of Wes's overall budget, so it's not going to hurt us financially.
All right, anything else?
Commissioner Savas.
Greg, I have a question for you while you're there. How did the West meeting, advisory meeting go last week? And did you perform all of the work you needed to perform with that advisory committee for the budget?
We didn't present budget. We will be doing that at the next advisory committee meeting, but we did, it did function. We did Zoom meeting and we had remarkable success with that technology, given the, you know, disparity, you know, a lot of people with different levels of kind of technological savvy. But yeah, we got all the business done that we needed to, and got our budget committee established, and we will be reaching out to them soon.
Were there any outcomes per se, decision points?
I'm trying to think of what.
There was one we could share.
Go ahead, Chris.
This is Chris. We presented to the board our current SDC rates and potential revised SDCs based on a projected updated capital improvement plan. And the committee voted to recommend to you as the board that our SDCs be adjusted by inflation only for the next 2 years. And they asked for an opportunity to revisit that decision down the line with more information that we will develop for them.
Okay, so do we have any capital expenditures that would go up in cost due to inflation by not raising the SDC? I mean, what are the consequences?
It is foregone revenue.
The trade-off is versus rates. So if we're not charging the full maximum, I should say, SDC, then, and that's what we shared with them, is what the impact to the monthly rate would be. It doesn't impact our ability to deliver our capital improvement plan. It's just a matter of how we pay.
So it's rates versus SDCs.
Yes.
And the goal was to, I mean, the committee thought that we should slowly raise the rate of the SDCs, and it should be, well, growth should pay. But you can't just do that all at once. You have to have rates as part of that cost. And I think it's what I agree this is what we should do, so.
Yeah, I just I'll close this out with this. You know, the yin and the yang of that is that I haven't seen the numbers, but I just want to make sure that doesn't pass an unfair burden to the ratepayers. For example, if they are absorbing a higher than inflationary raise in lieu of an SDC raise, that would be unfair to the ratepayer base. I would have a concern about that.
One of the things that we had quite a discussion about that, and you know, there was concern. We already have pretty much the highest wastewater SDC in the region, and so there was some concern given the state of things right now and the impacts to the potential housing market that we would not be competitive. So that was part of the conversation. I lost my train of thought. Yeah, anyway, it'll come to me.
Okay, I'd like to ask Stephen. Stephen, do we need a motion for the board to approve this late fee?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Ken?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to what he said, adjust the to.
Waive the late fee certification for Wes.
Okay. Could you please poll the commission?
Kevin?
Yes. Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Fischer,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Humbertson,
Aye.
Chair Bernard.
Aye, motion carries unanimously.
Great.
Next item?
Thank you, Greg. Next is a similar request from Department of Transportation and Development to waive license late fee waivers for dog services. We have Dan Johnson and Mike Besner to present. There also was a memo in your packet.
Thank you so much, Gary. Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development. In your memo, it kind of highlights the fact that there are state laws and there are county ordinances that require dogs have a current rabies vaccination. In the current situation that we're facing, the requirement for social distancing and the provision of those services, that becomes a difficult proposition. So we would like to provide a waiver of license late fees to extend until 60 days after the state of emergency is officially lifted. We would ask for a motion on this as well.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to waive the late fee for dog services. Any further discussion? Please poll the commission.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Fischer,
Aye.
Commissioner Humbertson,
Aye.
Chair Bernard.
Aye, motion carries unanimously. What's next?
Great, thank you. So the next is commissioners, these type of requests from staff and departments will continue as your emergency declaration continues. And so the question is, how would you like to process requests for fee waivers by county departments in the coming weeks? Would you like staff to come before you at either Tuesdays or Thursdays for when you meet? Would you like Chair Bernard to have authority to make that decision and then come back to you to ratify? Would you like me to make that decision? Or would you give authority to department directors to individually make those decisions? So my recommendation is should either be the full board makes that decision, although that could be burdensome and not timely. Probably the better model is to allow Chair Bernard in consultation with me, the administrator, to make that decision, and then we report back to you. I would like your input and feedback on how you'd like to proceed with these requests.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah, I would move that it be you and the administrator to handle that.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it with a small proviso that, as Gary stated, just report back to us on what was done.
You bet. All right, so was there a second? Oh, you did. Oh, would you please poll the commission?
All right, Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Fischer,
Aye.
Commissioner Humbertson,
Aye.
Chair Bernard.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. What's up next?
Okay, still on our emergency declaration. Next, commissioners, I signed a contract on your behalf last week for a contract amendment with Good Multnomah for services for people who are houseless, unhoused individuals. This was for Health, Housing, and Human Services. Chair Bernard was not available, so I signed as next in line. But I do need ratification from you all, and I'd like to do it today if you agree with this. Rich Swift is on the line if you have any specific questions for him. But this was something that could not wait for your next business meeting. So I signed as Chair Bernard was unavailable. But do you have any questions, board members, please?
I move to ratify.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Further discussion? All right.
Commissioner Humbertson,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Fischer,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Chair Bernard.
Ditto. That's an aye. Motion carries.
Thank you, commissioners. Next, still on our emergency declaration, there was a letter from Multifamily Northwest, which had several requests and input regarding at-risk residents and housing providers. Staff has drafted a draft response that you could send back to Multifamily Northwest. Rich Swift is also here should you have any questions about the original letter or our draft response. But we're seeking approval to send a response from the board back to Multifamily Northwest.
I have a question or suggestion. Suggestion is that based on the conversation we had in executive session, I was wondering if we can actually wait to hear what Chair Bernard discussed might be happening with the governor as far as, whether it's compensation or making those whole, but if that would be more timely to wait a day or so. But I think with the letter, I read it, but it doesn't have any, I don't think it really answers the question they have. And if there's more information in a day or so, maybe that would be more timely to insert that if there is some additional information that would kind of ease their concerns a little bit.
I'd have to agree with that. We need to see what happens at the federal and state level first. I'm pretty comfortable. So Gary, tell me again what your request is.
So requesting if you commissioners approve a response letter to Multifamily Northwest responding to their letter. It would be a letter on behalf of the board signed by the chair. So seeking your approval to send this draft, or sounds like you'd like to hold, which we also could do.
Well, I don't know. Do I have the draft somewhere?
Yeah, and I have to piggyback on that. I'm not sure where the draft is. We have so many emails. I've somehow missed that one.
Is it a short letter?
It is in the, if you go to issues on the website, you can click on it. That's where I found it. It's a highlighted link on the website.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
If I could ask Rich, what do you recommend? Should we wait? Was there an urgent? It didn't seem to be an urgent need, but obviously we want to respond to requests that come in.
Thank you, Gary. Good morning to the commission. I think we can wait on this. This letter was actually airing concerns regarding how do we react to this crisis in terms of housing, mortgages, and et cetera, as outlined in a letter from Northwest Families. So I think it is appropriate for the board to be comfortable in its response. There is a lot going on federally. There is a lot going on at the state level in regards to mortgages, housing, financial assistance. And so I think it's fine to wait, get comfortable with the draft, and then submit it. I mean, they weren't asking for, at this point, direct assistance for themselves. And some of these issues are big enough that they're going to need further conversation, I believe.
Yeah, so I see the letter, but that they sent, where's the draft of our response?
It was below it. I think if you scroll down, I think the response was on the same link. So scroll down to the bottom.
I'm afraid I just lost the dang thing. So. Yeah, I'll have to look. So yeah, let's delay that until, maybe we could put that on a consent agenda on Thursday, if we're all good with it.
Well, it was just simply key that if there's new information that comes out, to add that. That was the only time. It was a matter of timeliness and completeness, because I don't think that it was vague in response to their request or concerns, I guess.
So you just want to add something. You just want to add something that says to the letter that we're just. It depends on what happens at the state and federal level.
Right. Because there might be something valuable there, and it'll just make us look a little bit better if we have a more complete response. If there's not going to be a better answer or more complete response from the federal or state side, then send the letter as best we can. I don't want to hold it up unnecessarily, but based on what you said, Jim, earlier, it would be wiser just to hold off a little bit and get that complete as possible.
All right, let's hold off, and we should have that answer here. The federal government may have voted on it already. I don't know. So we should have that answer soon. Let's hold off.
Yep, understood. Thank you. Next, this is not emergency declaration based, but we need a response. There is a draft response regarding safe overnight shelters. And Mary Jo Cartagena helped with this, but she's not on. She's not one of the participants. But Rich Swift, I know, also helped support that. So, Rich, can you please give a quick update about this letter response?
Okay, I don't have the letter in front of me, but essentially what this is a response regarding safe overnight sheltering and opening, that opportunity. So I think it's a pretty straightforward response. I think Mary Jo was working with the heat on this, and but I do not have that letter in front of me right now.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Go ahead. So it was in your packet. It's sort of a template we can send to people who are asking about this, because people are still asking, what is the county going to do? So seeking board approval for this letter to be sent out to those who are asking about this topic.
So I'm on the website right now. I didn't see that.
It's
anywhere.
above. It's above. It's about the second or third one down.
Oh, okay. Is it titled Safe Overnight? Is that the one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's fine, and the church that did propose this is not included in this. And in this extremely challenging time, it just opens up a little more opportunity. I don't know what you think. It's a challenge.
Do you need a motion on that?
I think we do.
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
There a sec- Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Oh, excuse me, Paul.
Commissioner Fischer,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Humbertson,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
I'm still reading that, but I don't see anything bad. So yeah, fine.
Chair Bernard.
Aye, motion carries.
Great, thank you. Next is review of your business meeting agenda for this Thursday, March 26th. It will be a remote meeting conducted by Zoom, just like we're doing right now. We are still determining if we can have the public view live as you do the meeting. We think we can, but staff will be back in touch with us before Thursday with that answer. For your agenda, we'll have a COVID-19 update like we've been doing every Thursday. You have one public hearing, which is the second reading of the ordinance amending the Clackamas County Code related to the transient room tax. And then you just have a consent agenda. And none of the items appear controversial to me. But if you have any questions, would you please let me know prior to Thursday and we can answer them for you. The last topic is Commissioner Communications. We are continuing with the suggestion that you could give liaison updates. I've listed 3 topics for liaison updates if you choose to follow them, and that is the County Fair Board, Economic Development Commission, and Homeless Services Here Together. But it's your choice if you'd like to do that or just give a general update.
Who's up first?
County Fair Board, Commissioner Humbertson.
Okay.
So there's not a lot happening there. They're very concerned, obviously, that the flower show and the fair, if they don't happen, that will be an serious economic problem for them. I've suggested to Rob Campbell to have a conversation with the chair of the fair board regarding the business plan that he was going to work on them with, given the uncertainties of what's going to happen on the events that they normally do. They may decide to sit tight until things stabilize before they go to the next step, which is to develop a business plan. Before I move on, I did have one thing I wanted to share with the members of the board, and I had asked Gary to find out some information on behalf of the hotels. Some of them don't allow smoking, and so they're asking that there be some rules for anybody that comes in with a voucher. So I've asked them to come together and figure out what rules they need, then get that to social services so that when we issue a voucher, social services can inform people what's going on. Their attorney had a very serious question about the 30-day, if it went over 30 days that they stayed at the hotel, would the eviction rules apply? Obviously, they would not want that to occur. That would be a real burden for their businesses. So we need to get an answer to that question. And then I believe social services is now on the issue of food. And they should be working directly with the hotels to make sure that the food issue is addressed for those people who don't have the money to buy food. I don't think Gary has answers to that yet because these things are being worked on, but just wanted the rest of the board to know that these were questions that came up from our hoteliers.
I don't have answers yet, but we'll get them to you in the board.
Great questions.
I have a question or a concern.
Go ahead.
And that is that with the closure of the state parks, listening to the governor's address on Sunday on the phone and yesterday, my concern about there are people that are travelers and they travel with their RVs. You know, some of them sold their homes and they're, you know, whether they're regardless of their financial status, some of them are pretty well, have pretty good retirements, but they don't have a home. Their home is their RV and RV hookups, for example. So when the state parks closes, those are destinations. So I'm wondering as far as the fair board or the fair, is there hookups at the fair? I thought there were hookups, and we ought to be accommodating because I'm kind of concerned about those people being shut out with nowhere to park.
There are hookups at the fair. They're usually used during the rodeo and whatnot like that. They're probably not in use right now. I'm not sure who'd be the appropriate person, but I can contact Lori and ask her how that could be arranged for travelers only. And then I will get that information to Gary Schmidt.
Yeah, I'm sure that, of course, they'd have to.
If that's okay?
Yeah. I would just, you know, make sure that obviously everyone knows about the social distancing aspect of well. So if they could be spaced farther apart, the better. I don't see a flood of that happening, but it's something I just thought out there that they might be just left out there with no place to hook up. Thank you.
I will get to Lori today, and by the end of the day, we should be able to have an answer.
I want to add something. I got a question. I sent this to Gary and to Nancy. Johnson RV, I don't know if this is any relationship to the Johnsons, but they have facilities. And I think they may have mobile home or RV space available. I sent this to Nancy, and I assume someone will follow up on that.
Yes.
It was from Bynum.
We'll follow up.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Next, Economic Development Commission, Commissioner Humberston, Savas.
I don't have anything from it. Maybe Commissioner Savas does.
I do not. It's a little bit. Obviously, it's kind of crazy. I won't waste anyone's time. Will there be at some point? What do we plan on doing with some of our ABCs? Will we? I know there's a lot of uncertainty, but will we be having Zoom kind of meetings like Wes did with their advisory committee? And that's not. I don't need an answer for that today, but I think we need to figure out of our ABCs which ones we either plan on not doing for the immediate future and which ones we actually plan to do in the immediate future. That's all.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Not right now necessarily, but we can talk about what are those primary ABCs that we should be continuing through some other process. It's a good point.
Okay, Commissioner Fischer, Homeless Services Here Together update.
So the Here Together effort is moving forward with the strong idea that when this is all over, there's going to be even more disparity out there and more challenges with homelessness. So while there is conversations at the state level of not moving forward with the business activity tax or commercial activity tax, this effort is moving forward. I can tell you that my energies have not been focused so much on Here Together because I've been spending more time talking with people in the community regarding the immediate concerns and needs and meeting needs out in the community. So in that regard, I do have a concern, Gary, like we did a background check for Wilsonville for Meals on Wheels. I have a feeling that that could be an issue beyond Wilsonville. And I don't know if the board can make a suggestion that we are going to waive background checks, sorry about that, for all of our meal delivery providers, but I see that as something that may be a barrier in the future. I had an urgent request by Deborah Mason yesterday about that. So that's something to put on our list to look into and follow up on. Sorry, I don't know why this phone rings. Nobody has this number. Anyway, the other thing that I do, that I talked about, that I'm on a phone call with Rachel Prusak, school board members and city councilors. I think it would be really great, and I don't know if, Ken, you could get in touch with the representative that's out towards you with some of the CPOs, but if we could be systematically getting that information so we could all share it with one another, I think that would be really awesome. And Martha, you've done such a great job with the business community. If we could rely on you to continue to liaison. I do know that Laura Edmonds reached out to me about the concern for manufacturing before the governor's stay home order came into effect. So on the conference call with the governor, I was able to mention that. Happy to see that manufacturing is still going to continue with social distancing. I think we do have a lot of input on these larger decisions, but it's so important that we are getting the information from the folks in the community. So as much as we can have good communication with each other, share what we're hearing, and be systematic in it, I think that would be wise. And I know that Chair Bernard's been awesome in working on that. So that's all I've got.
Commissioner Schrader?
Yeah, Commissioner Fischer, I really do want to thank you for all the work that you've been doing on this. I really appreciate the fact that it's brought in different players into our community, particularly the Portland Business Alliance, and really starting to talk with folks that maybe our chamber, our biggest chamber, the North Clackamas chamber, hasn't had an opportunity to talk with before. But in order for me to make that happen, I had to spend some political capital. And you do know that they are upset over Here Together. And what I tried to do was arrange a space so you and Bob Stoll could get together and talk to them. In order for me to do that, I told my friend Bob, I needed to be up here Switzerland. So I'm going to ask for your help. He's very upset with me over that. But I am here to tell you, I certainly don't oppose putting this on the ballot. That's never been my aim. But I do worry that our chamber, our largest chamber, has these concerns. And in order to give you and the Here Together folks an opportunity to talk to them, it was very important for me to be perceived as even, as neutral, as trying to bring people together. So any help you can give me with Bob would be greatly appreciated, because once again, I get called, oh, you're not progressive, you're not this, you're not that. And I know he doesn't mean it, but I have a very strong background in helping people and have for years. And I don't want to get into labels over this, okay? I really don't. I really kind of want to do my job in the middle and try and connect the right people at the right time so you can help influence those outcomes. So if you would help me with that, I would greatly appreciate it. I don't know how successful you were with the chamber. I've been just sending information to Laura Edmonds that deals with what their needs are from the business community. So I should let the rest of you know that I've just traded that information with her. But we have to give each other the grace and the space to know when and how people need to use the relationships they have and how they need to maintain an open conduit for political capital. And they are a very large constituency of ours. and have done a lot of good in the community. So I hope you continue speaking with them. I don't know if you've convinced them. I don't have any idea, but I certainly would appreciate your help in putting to bed any kind of attitude that I am not progressive enough, or that I particularly object to this being on the ballot. I don't. I asked not to have my name put on it so you would have the space to do the communication you wanted to do. So I just wanted to be clear with that. So thank you for your work. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, just a comment. Bob Stoll did talk to Laura Edmonds. Oh, Martha, you want to mute your?
Yeah, the dog's barking.
Okay.
I hear it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, the doggy. So there's just misinformation that the chamber had that they based their decision on. And the effort was to get the information for the voter pamphlet deadline. That deadline has passed. So honestly, my focus has been on making sure people get food, making sure that the school districts, the school board members have what they need in order to get education to kids, seeing where there might be potential partnerships, looking at areas where we may need to divert staff because there are emergencies in the community. I don't have the ability to focus on this political campaign right now because the other issues are so emergent. I'm just not as concerned about it. I do know that many businesses individually have come out and endorsed, big businesses that make well over the threshold, that want this because they can see that when this COVID-19 is over, we're going to need to especially have a funding mechanism in place to take care of those that are unsheltered. So there's still a tremendous outpouring of support. If you look at the website, you will see so many that have endorsed this effort, and it gives me a lot of hope, but who knows what will happen and where the priorities are. We will see through this current pandemic that there will be some industries that will completely thrive. Maybe those that make masks and other very important manufacturing goods, and there will be others that are completely decimated and people will suffer for that. So we want to make sure through the storm we have an infrastructure in place. But for now, dealing with immediate needs.
Commissioner Schrader?
Yeah, thank you so much, Commissioner Fischer. I really appreciate that as well. And I do agree there has been, particularly through the Portland Business Alliance, significant business support. But here's the crux of the issue. It's all about relationships. And it would have been a better process, in my opinion, if we can't change it now. But in order to have people buy in things, they have to help co-create it. And from my perspective, that's where a breakdown occurred. Because I do think that our business community felt somewhat blindsided. And I do know that they cooperate, they support these kinds of things, they move forward with these kinds of things. But we have to build the bridge and the relationship between the bigger folks who have rightly gotten behind this and our smaller to medium-sized businesses and our traded sector businesses here in the county. And I just feel it's an area that I've really spent a great deal of my personal and political time on through the years. So I hope that we can move forward with this. And I also am focused right now on the pandemic and particularly supplies for our health system. So thank you again. I really appreciate it.
All right.
Yeah, and just really quickly, and I want us to move on because we're spending too much time on this, but Commissioner Schrader, you need to know that before the Metro had referred this on the ballot and it was looking like the citizens were going to put this on the November ballot, I called Laura Edmonds and asked to come speak with their group, and it was not enough of a priority for her to put that on their next agenda. So I did do outreach, and I just want to make sure that you know that for your and my relationship.
All right, let's move on. Let's move on.
Okay, we are done with issues for today. We're now moving on to our first and only policy session for the day. I'll ask the moderators, we need to get Mark into the panelist list, please. And I'm not sure if Rod also is a panelist, but we'll find out here shortly. So the first policy session, And only policy session is the 2020 action plan and 2020-2021 funding recommendations for our community development division. This is a requirement by the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. This will be done at a business meeting, but this is just to prepare you for that business meeting. So our presenter is Mark from Health, Housing, and Human Services, and he's just getting online here now. So Mark, if you could turn your camera on, please, and as soon as you're ready.
Hello, Commissioners. This is just the annual application process for HUD funding, which is CDBG funds and home funds, and ESG funds, which is Emergency Solutions Grant. And every year, Chuck presents this to you in the form of a public hearing. We've got that public hearing scheduled on April 9th. And I just want to give you the funding recommendations so you'd have a chance to look at them and ask me any questions you might have. I'll be back before you again April 9th in a public hearing. Our action plan's been posted in draft form, and that comment period is going to end April 20th. And then our final plan will be before you April 30th for your approval, so that we can then submit to HUD. And you may be aware that currently the Congress is approving a stimulus package. Some of that money, once it gets approved, will be in the form of CDBG funds and ESG funds. As I get more information, hopefully by April 9th, I can present that to you then.
All right, any questions, Commissioners?
All I know is that there's been a lot of discussion about how to spend those CBGD funds. Various communities may be looking at them and use them in different ways to keep businesses or keep the economy going. And I guess, you know, I'm just listening to the conversations and see if it's something that the county needs to consider. But everyone has to apply for the funds anyway, and that's after this process, correct?
Correct. People have already applied for the funding in our November-December window, and they submitted proposals, and we reviewed them all. But once this funding becomes available in August, and we approach the cities and our partners and say, "Are you ready to go?" If their priorities have changed, then we may have to talk with them about what they want to do with the funds, and then we'll have to come back before you. And as you know, each one of these projects involves an intergovernmental agreement that we bring before you for signature and approval. And then when we put the project out to bid, we bring it back out to you as well for review and approval.
Yeah. Commissioner Humberston, then Commissioner Savas.
So essentially what I'm hearing is that there'll be multiple opportunities to make changes or have other bites at the apple as circumstances on the ground change. Is that correct?
That's correct. Every one of these projects has an intergovernmental agreement or a cooperation agreement that we bring before you for review and approval. And our partners also to decide once that agreement is before them whether or not they want to move forward with the project. And when and if they do want to move forward, then we may put the project out to bid and then sign a contract or bring that contract before you for review before we sign off on it.
Okay, I guess, so the question really is before us is moving forward for the public hearing on April 9th, correct?
That's correct. I just wanted you all to see the funding recommendations we have, and if you have any questions, you can send them my way and I'll respond by email or right now.
So I'm prepared to make a motion at the pleasure of the chair.
Hold a second, Commissioner.
Yeah, yes, thanks. So this is one of my favorite things to do, actually, and that is the work we've done with CDBG and all these other programs has been awesome. And the fact that usually almost every city gets a project, and the unincorporated areas get projects. They're based on low-income areas. I just want to say kudos to staff on that, and I move for option 2. Or option 1, the staff recommendation for the April 9th hearing.
I'll second that.
Richard?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Bernard, and thank you, Commissioner. First of all, just wanted to say thank you to staff for their work on this process. In terms of our ability to be flexible with these these different funding sources, I think it's important to note that we are in a process related to this action plan. And so if cities decide to go forward with their funding packages, as is outlined in what's proposed here, then that will be how those dollars are used. So we're not going to necessarily be able to move money around in a really flexible fashion unless the government loosens up its required processes related to this. If cities choose to back out of current funding plans and then wish to use those dollars differently, then we would have to look at, where does that fit within the process. But I just wanted to make sure that we understood that these funding sources are not highly flexible. So just a note, and also once again to reiterate my thanks to staff for their work on this.
All right, Commissioner Fischer.
Yeah, thank you. I just had a question under the public and governmental participation. It says that 2 public meetings were held, one on October 30th and one on November 14th. Can you describe how was the participation? How was the outreach for those meetings?
Yes, for those meetings, we put an ad in the paper and we have a listserv of people that are interested, and we send out a meeting notice. And we had around 10 people show up for each meeting. And then we just talked about different projects that are eligible for this type of funding and how to apply for the funds.
All right. Anything else?
All right.
All right. So there was a motion and a second to put this on the April 9th meeting. Would you please poll the commission?
Yes. Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner Fischer.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner Humberston.
Aye.
Chair Bernard.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. What's up next, Gary? Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mark and Rich.
Thank you.
That is it, commissioners. You're finished with issues. You're finished with your policy sessions for today.
All right. Well, thank you all very much for taking the time. This is going to work. It's great.
Right.
Thank you.
Congratulations, everyone.
Thank you all. We'll see you Thursday for the business meeting.
All right. Bye-bye.